Balance. The goal is balance. We need balance between work and play. We need balance between giving and receiving. We need balance in thought and feelings. We need balance in caring for our physical self and our spiritual self. A balanced life has harmony between a professional life and a personal life. There may be at times when we need to climb mountains at work. Many times when we put some extra energy into our relationships, but the overall picture needs to be balanced. Just as a balanced nutritional diet takes into account the realm of our nutritional needs to stay healthy, a balanced life takes into account all of our needs. Our need for friends, work, love, family, play, private time, recovery time, and spiritual time. Time with God. Without balance, our inner voice will tell us we have to learn how to listen. Then I'll examine my life to see if scales have swung too far in any area and not far enough in some. I will work towards achieving balance. I wanted to read that and kind of kick off what we're going to be doing today because, as I mentioned last week, the key to everything we do in life is centralized around balance. So if you have questions you want to ask me based on the relationship series, I'll gladly try to answer them to the best of my ability, and we'll get a little dialogue going here and see what happens with it. Okay? So, as I say, we always like trying something new. Sandy, do you have a question? Okay, the hand's still up. Okay, no problem. All right. I kind of put together a couple of questions just to bring it up because the thing I emphasized so much when I did the relationship series is the personal relationship that we have with ourselves. I've learned over the years what I refer to as the 4 questions we have to ask ourselves every day. And they're questions that it takes a lifetime to answer. For example, who am I? Why am I on this earth? What is my purpose in this earth? We all have a purpose. And that purpose may have a lot of different faces, and that's okay too. How do I handle who I am? What is my interaction with others? How do I connect with other people? Can I take my recovery show on the road? Can I share it with others? The other question is, do I love myself? Do I love who I am? Do I enjoy being myself? And even though when I go through hard times, am I able to handle situations and handle things in life? And so I've learned over the course of the journey of life how important that is. Like everybody else, myself included, how we have to kind of do it our way first. And then we open up to learn other ways. I often said this so many times, as this battle goes on inside of all of us. It's the battle of the intellect versus the heart and the spirit. The spirit is who you really are. And the heart, your head, is just the information center. And to be able to keep that in balance, it's hard work. It's a hard job. And that's why it's so important just to be able to take a look at that and see what the aspect of it is and what it's really all about. So it's a big part of the process we go through in life. So, as I said before, do any of you have any questions you want to put on the floor, or should I just operate with some of the ones I put together? I'll kick it off and then we'll go from there, okay? But if you have questions, put that little hand up, either your physical hand or the computer hand, and then I'll try to get across to you and see what happens. Okay, that question I said back in the beginning, who am I? What makes us who we are? What really is the concept of what I am as a person? Yes, it is my physical body, but my physical body is only a housing. And one thing about my physical body, and we all know this, it's going to go through ages, it's going to go through changes, it's going to get old, it's going to have aches, it's going to have pains, it's going to have beauty, it's going to have a lot of different things. Why? Because it's human and it's physical. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit sometimes to be able to accept and love the house that we live in. I call a human body the house that our spirit is living in. And the other part of that thing is what makes me who I am is the fact that I am unique. I am different from every other human being on the face of this earth, just as you are. And it's your uniqueness is what we really have to learn to accept, to be able to adjust, to be able to develop in the course of our life. Again, I've learned over the years, we all have gifts, we all have talents. Each one of us is unique and special, but our talents are different. All of us in this room, no matter who you are, we've gone through different things in life. We've gone through struggles, we've gone through battles, and we've gone through a lot of celebration, a lot of gifts of life. And that might be in a form of different types of relationships. It might be a marriage, it might be someone you partnered with, individuals you live with, you've connected with in life. It can be family, it can be your children, it can be a lot of different areas. See, I really believe that to find my purpose, I need to be able to interact, to connect with other people. You know, I look at my own journey. I can always share my own journey. I began Starting Point, well, on October 17th, it'll be 47 years. And I look back in the aspect of Starting Point and I realize, how do most things in life that really define a direction for us in life, how do they normally happen? I'll give you just an overview. When I was 14 years old, my mother put me in a seminary. Now, honestly, I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I had no idea at all. But I went. Now, I could have screamed and yelled and threw a temper tantrum, but I didn't. I went. I didn't realize that that decision that was made for me would later on become a very positive thing in the course of my journey in life. That's why I've said so many times that sometimes we discover our purpose, why we're on this earth, through the back door. You know, I've learned something. I got to be open to where the Spirit takes me. You never know where it's going to take you. Just like I remember when, I got ordained. I told you these stories before. And I told the bishop what I wanted. Here we go again, what I wanted. He sent me what he wanted. So I ended up going to a very rich parish, although I wanted to be in the poor parish. And I was mad at him too. And come to find out, through that parish, I was able to start my journey in recovery. See how gifts work? So I discovered a purpose. But I had to go through an experience. That experience was an alcoholic pastor that got me to go to Al-Anon, that began my journey on the other side. But again, being stubborn, because I always want to do it my way, because that's my ego fighting my spirit. Guess what? Didn't work my way. So basically, I ended up having to make a lot of decisions, a lot of changes, go through a lot of things in life, and I learned something. I learned how to adjust to different situations in life. And over the course of that, I began to experience the plan God had in store for me, just as God has in store for you. It might be raising a family. It might be doing some of the things you're good at doing at. It might be in a support system. It might be in being a teacher. It might be a laborer. No matter what it is, everything in life is important. We're all led in different directions. So that's a good question. what makes me who I am. It makes me by being open and allowing the messages that flow through me and in my life. In short, how to hard this the hard way. Get out of the way. Have faith and trust. And then you'll be led to where you're supposed to be led. And again, it takes a lot of patience, takes a lot of time. And I'm learning over and over again that a lot of times in the course of my own journey, I never had a lot of patience or had a lot of time. And so it goes from there. So it's all part of it. I was just checking to see if there's any messages in the chat, but there aren't. Cindy, if you see any in the chat, let me know, okay? So I don't make myself crazy here with this little thing. All right. So anyway, like I said, don't be afraid. If you got a question, put it out there. I'll try to answer it, see what happens. Maybe we'll go in a different direction with something else. That's okay too. Okay, here's a good question. Lana, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Lana.
Okay. You mentioned who am I, the question. And of course, having done a lot of work around that, I have a good idea of who I am, where I came from. However, throughout the years, I'm not who I was 30, 40 years ago. I've grown. But maybe this is a question. I think it's a question. How do my family of origin still expects me to be who I was back then? Okay. Now I know I don't want to go back, and I don't want to spending time telling them about my history. So I sometimes I get confused. Sometimes I think, do I need to go back to be in their lives, or do I need to know really this is who I am and move on? So I'm just a little confused. Maybe you could address that.
That's a good question. I think as we go through changes and we go through growth, and other people stay where they are, a lot of times it can create a lot of confusion, a lot of problems. It's the same thing as regards anything we do in life. So things change. And I know in my own family too, the exact same thing. They have a hard time accepting change. And so as a result, you're going to find out you can't go back. See, one thing I've learned, once you go through a process of growth and change, you can try to go back, but you can't. I was just getting an example of this. Drug addicts and alcoholics will tell you, once they've had clean time for a long period of time, and they try to go back to drugs and alcohol, it's 80 times worse when they try to go back than it is where they stay. So it's a hard thing to do. And yet you're going to find out that a lot of families can't accept change. I joke a lot now, but I've learned to accept that too, and then adjust accordingly. For example, my aunts used to always say this to me when I would go home and visit them. They'd say, "Are you still hanging around those people?" Well, that's you guys. Yeah, I'm still hanging around you. But the bottom line is, I think you have to just be able to accept them where they're at, and not get upset and not go through changes and adjust accordingly. So I love my family. I got my left now, but when I used to go visit them, I have a cup of coffee, I shoot the breeze with them, talk about the weather, talk about their bunions, small talk, and enjoy them where they are. I think what happens when we go through changes, we try to go back and we try to fix them. We want them to move forward with us. But they have their own choices. Just love them where they're at, that's all. Now, don't go back, please.
I get tempted, but I don't. And also, when you say accept them for who they are, for me, I always feel like there's a grieving process too, because I'm letting go of, my family of origin, where I come from. And even though it isn't working, there are steps to accepting them for who they are. And I have to go through a grieving process as well. So I'm sure, that's in there too, because that's what I've learned, coming around in the rooms. You have to feel your feelings and then let it go and move on. So I just guess I
Yeah, I
wanted to
think grief
go
is
ahead.
part of life, of course. As saying goodbye to something that was, and saying hello to something that is.
Yeah,
And it's hard to say goodbye. It's not easy, believe me. Okay,
yeah. Thanks, Vince.
no problem. Caroline,
Hi, how are you?
good.
A little bit of what you said kind of feeds into my question. I just retired July 1st, from teaching for 34 years, and that's who I was. I was a teacher, and I'm not a teacher anymore, and I really don't have a good sense of myself. Now, at that time, I didn't really think that a teacher was all that I was. It just was how it was. Now that I'm not a teacher anymore, I don't have a clear identity of myself.
That's a fantastic question. So many of us, based around the jobs that we're involved in, things that we do, we become that. So teaching for you was a way in which you expressed yourself. And you expressed yourself around whoever you taught. So now, as you retire away from that particular type of teaching, you're still a teacher. So how can I take the gift that I have as a teacher and develop it into a new way of life? See, the fact is, yes, you can connect with being a teacher. A teacher can be my whole entire life, or it can be a gift that God has given me that now my purpose is to be able to move it into a new direction. It might be volunteering and doing some work in different places. It might be just being able to use those skills to help one or two people here and there that are handicapped or something to that effect. Who knows? The thing is, try to be open to where the next teaching job is. And that teaching job might be right in your family. It might be in the rooms of recovery. So a lot of times being able to just share your gift, you've got a gift. So now what I have to do is I got to take this gift that I have and I have to learn now how to move it into a new direction. You retired from a job, not from teaching. Big difference there. So you got an art. How do I hone my art now? How do I use it? Again, just ask those questions of yourself. And the other piece of it is give it to God. Okay, God, what do you got in store for me next? I did a real good job here. What do you have in store for me next? Because I really believe retirement, no retirement means moving into the new stage of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah,
So
thank
now
you.
you got choices. See? But now you can really teach on your own time and your own way without worrying about all the other stuff.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, teaching is a beautiful gift of service. Okay, so doing service is what it's really all about. Good question. Okay. Sandy, the hand is still up, but I don't think you have a question, do you? Okay. All right. Both questions that were asked are really excellent because one of the things I want to bring out is grief. And Landy brought this up, and it really pertains to Caroline too. The grieving process is part of life. You know the old saying, you've heard it before, When one door closes, another door opens. So sometimes in the course of our journey in life, we have to realize the fact that we have to be able to say goodbye to what was so something new can be born. You know, you've heard the phrase a lot of times, from the ashes of one thing, something new grows. So we have to watch something come to an end. And that goes for every area of life. I've said this so many times, the grieving process is the process of life. You know, for years I was extremely active in a lot of different ways. You know, like I was said earlier, I was doing these groups, I was reffing basketball, umping baseball, doing all kinds of stuff, being involved in a lot of stuff. I can't do that now. But I can use different means to continue sharing, to continue teaching. And it might be through Zoom or other directions in life. I also realize my energy level is not the same as it used to be. So therefore, it's more limited. But it all comes down to, and it's a big part of grieving, come to an acceptance. And from there, you can adjust to something new. It's a big part of it. Well, when I was the employee assistance counselor for the city of Philadelphia, the water department, and also the airport, we had a program there called What's Next? When guys were getting ready and gals were getting ready to retire, we actually did a workshop for them called What's Next in Life. Might be a good thing for me to do sometime here at Starting Point for people that are at that retirement age to work in that direction. Yeah, because even today, people are retiring in their 50s today. You know, a lot of companies are pushing people out at 55, 56, 57 for younger people, because especially with technology the way it is today. And so a lot of forced retirement. So where do I go? So really good stuff. You can write down to it. Okay. All righty. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay. I'll throw another one out here, see what happens. If, you know, just interrupt me and put the hand up or put your real hand up, and I'll gladly call on you. Okay. One of the things we have to look at when it comes to both the grieving process and relationships. And the question was, how did the 12 steps come into play with all this? What really are the steps, and why are they a form of grieving? And why are they a form of developing good, healthy relationships? Well, it comes down to, and I really believe, you know I'm going to say this, I say it 18,000 times. The founders of our recovery program, when they put together, and you know, they started out with 39 guys and they ended up with about 100 who worked on this for a long period of time. When they came up with the 12 steps, there are 12 principles of life. And so the first 11 steps are an ultimate form of grieving, doing closure. Because the more you work on yourself, the more you have to learn how to let go of certain things and be able to move forward. The same thing happens in relationships a lot of times, where one person does a lot of work and a lot of growing, and the other person just kind of lays back. You begin to see a space between them, in relationships especially. And that's why somehow, some way, we have to learn how to be able to interact, interconnect. And so what do the steps teach us? They teach us if we do work on ourselves, then whatever's going on inside of us will go out automatically to others. It's part of the interaction process. So my energy will then attract into my life something to share the energy with. If I'm always thinking negatively, I'm going to attract negative into my life. We see that in relationships a lot of times because I really believe one of the most powerful addictions on the face of the earth are relationship addictions. You can make anything into an addiction, but relationships are very scary because you deal with the emotional system. So I can actually make another person into a drug. And as a result, I don't know how to handle it. And I've seen it many times. How we go back to the same thing over and over again, thinking it will be different. Because I'm making changes, I want you to make the changes. As a result, then I'm going to fix you and straighten you out. This is a funny little story, but I like funny stories. I had a lady come in to see me one time and she said, I found the one. I says, okay, you're watching Hallmark, haven't you? So I found the one. She said, I met this guy, he's fantastic, and we're going to get married. I've been living with him now for the past year, and he has one major problem. He makes funny noises and he snores a lot and he keeps me awake. But don't worry about that, Vince, because once we get married, I'll straighten that out. I said, okay. Well, I take that to another dimension. It's almost like once I get that piece of paper, then you are now mine to organize, you are mine to fix, you are mine to put together the way I want you to be together. Now, we try to call that a relationship. No, that's a control ship. Remember the terms I used to use all the time? Control ship, usership, relationship. You know, I can make a relationship into anything I want to make it into if I don't look at my own issues and look at myself on the inside. Because I can use relationships to manipulate and to control. I can use relationships, to manipulate and use somebody. Now, in the program, we have a famous thing called the 13th step. Everybody know what the 13th step is? It means I go to meetings to pick up somebody. I'm looking for somebody vulnerable who I can then hook up with. And it's scary. It's all part of it. It's amazing. One time, just to show you a story, a lady who was very well educated, had a very good job, made a lot of money, had an addiction problem, went to rehab, got straight, went to a meeting, and she met this wonderful man at the meeting who would take her to meetings. She was married, take her to meetings and everything else. Well, after a period of time, she decided that the man she was married to was her old life. Now, this gentleman is her new life. And so literally, she left her husband, hooked up with this guy, they didn't get married. He moved in with her. And then when I was talking to her, I found it very interesting. He had no job, no place to live. He was young in recovery. And basically, he found a mommy and he found somebody to take care of him. And so he fit right in. Now, again, these things happen. But we have to learn lessons from everything in life. We have to learn the fact that I can't use another person as a drug. I have to be able to realize the fact they're part of my journey. Same thing as regards our kids. Relating to our kids means there comes a time when you have to let them go and let them move on. You may not like some of the decisions they're going to make, but maybe they got to go through their craziness and their insanity so that they can have their learning experiences and do their growing. It's all part of it. It's amazing. And yet, so many times, what do? I want you to take over my business. I don't want to take over you. I'm raising you for that purpose. Or family traditions. I want you to fit right into the mold. So if you change, there's going to be trouble. It's scary. So control can be a lot of different directions, a lot of different areas. It's amazing. Albert, you have a question? Albert? Albert? You have to unmute yourself, Albert. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Thank you. So when we talk about doing work on ourselves, doing the 12 steps, and especially in marriages, isn't it like a double-edged sword? Because there's going to be problems as a result of that because of the dynamics are changing. I mean, evidenced by like what Lana was saying. I mean, you're doing this work on yourself and you're going to cause change. And in the relationships that you have, whether it be children, most importantly, a spouse, that you're going to, there's going to be issues, there's going to be problems. And maybe you could embellish and talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think the one thing we have to understand about life is all we can do is work on ourselves. Now, we can invite other people to be participants in that, but we're powerless over it. And so therefore, we really do work on ourselves. Then we have to accept the fact that they are where they are. So it doesn't mean that I have to leave them or anything. I have to accept the reality of who they are. And then, but at the same time, I have to continue my journey of working on me and taking care of me. And as a result, I have to realize the fact that I have no idea where it's going to lead me. I have no idea where it's going to go. I got to be open to new things and new directions. Now, my spouse or my children, they may not be there. Similar to what we talked about earlier with Lana. Your family members may not be where you are. And so maybe you just have to be able to come to a point where you can love them where they're at and basically just continue your journey along with it. Will it cause tension sometimes? Of course it will. But really, what is life is supposed to have a little bit of tension in it. It may lead in a different direction too. See, we don't know the unknown.
Good.
That's why I've said so many times now, if you work on yourself, everything else will find its way where it's supposed to go. And that's where acceptance of self comes into acceptance of others. And so they may have to go through what they have to go through. They may have to learn what they have to learn. And maybe I just have to love them where they're at if I can. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you?
Yes, and just one last comment and question. And sometimes that's when they say, sometimes the old adage is like, I outgrew them. Because sometimes you have to leave.
It may come to that too. Again, it's all based on where it's at.
Right.
Your well-being, you have to continue your journey and your purpose.
Right.
If it creates a ton of animosity, yeah, sometimes it may mean it's time for that relationship to end, something new to be born.
Right.
There's so many factors, though. It's just like, they're looking at the hurricane model right now, and they have about 93 different little scenarios of where it can go.
Right.
Well, every time we work on ourselves, everything in life has those same scenarios where it can go.
Changing the trajectory.
Exactly.
Because
So
of the variables, yeah.
the variables are there. I have to
Right.
go with the flow, see where it takes me.
Right.
But if I keep trying to go back, I can't. See, I've learned something about growth. You're either growing or you're basically becoming stale.
Right.
There's no such thing. All I can do is keep moving. Because I don't want to spend the rest of my life sitting in a chair waiting for the undertaker to arrive. I said this sometimes, that sometimes we end up being dead before we're actually dead. Because we're dead in every aspect of life, except physically.
Right.
That's sad too. But again, maybe that's all the person is capable of doing. It's another point you got to bring out. That's why you shouldn't have to judge anybody. Because people are who they are, and they are where they are. That's right. The one thing I've said about the world we live in, they're human beings. They're human. They're human.
Right.
It's great to have
Thank you.
I know, it's great to have a human body.
Thank you, Vince.
No problem, Al, anytime. Anybody else? Questions? Jerry. You have to unmute, Jerry. You have to unmute yourself.
Eric,
Okay.
sure which way to go. Okay. Yeah. Albert had a really good point there, and it reminded me of something you said to me a while ago. It's very true that, when you do the steps, sometimes you find that your friends become your enemies and your enemies become your friends. So, and if you want to, you could expound on that if you want. Okay.
That's true, because you never know where the journey is going to take you, because you might think that those things that you thought were terrible and rotten may end up being beautiful and fantastic.
Exactly. Right.
Again, in my own life, when I was angry at my mother because of going to the seminary. Later on, I found out it was the greatest gift she ever gave me, and I had to thank her for it. I was mad at the bishop for sending me to the parish I didn't want to go to. And later on, I thank him. It's funny sometimes how that works. You might find out that the people that enabled you, you thought were your friends, may have been very unhealthy for you. And some of the people that gave you a hard time may be the ones that really were your greatest teachers. Believe me, from experience, I believe that. It's funny how so many of us come into recovery via the back door, and we don't even realize it a lot of times. So it's all part of the journey you go through in life. I never planned on starting Point 47 years ago. But, I went into a meeting one day thinking I was going to an AA meeting. I walked in a room, and my sponsor told me I was going to start this program, which was a halfway house for street people. I looked at him like he was totally nuts. I said, are you crazy? What are you talking about? I'm over here trying to make a decision about my life. Want me to start something new? But then after talking to them for a while, I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I'm still giving it a shot 47 years later. But the bottom line is was it my dream to do something like this? Again, through the back door. Things work in funny ways. And from that, a lot of relationships developed that helped things to grow and become something different. It's all part of it. It's the purpose behind everything. I'm convinced of that now. But what's funny? And Caroline, you brought up a good point. When you're going through something, you think this is the only thing. When you get to the other side, you look back and say, that all that is, did I do that? You wonder how you got where you got, where life had taken you. And recovery is a big part of that. Did I envision when I was a kid growing up that someday I'd be in recovery? I didn't even know what the hell recovery was. To me, recovery was, going to the hospital and getting an operation and you recover. You know, I had no idea at all. But see, it works after a while. You know, and same thing with my family. When I used to say things to them like, you know, I'm really enjoying recovery. They want to know if I had an operation. I said, no, I'm having a mental operation. But you know, I also learned something else. Gotta learn how to laugh. Laugh at life. Sometimes life, even when it's not funny, you still have to laugh a little bit. Gets you through the day, you know? We're on a journey, and that's why I believe faith and trust and letting go of the old and having something new come into play. Is that easy? No, it's easy to say. To do, hey, a little bit at a time is all you can do with that. It's a good point though, Jerry. It really is.
Yeah, thanks so much, Vince. Wonderful as always.
Thank you. Okay. Nobody else got any questions? Well, do me a favor. Okay. If questions do come up after all the stuff that we do, don't be afraid to send them over to me. You can send them by email. I have an easy email. It's vince@startingpoint.org. Vince@startingpoint, all one word, .org. Send them over, and if I can answer them, like I said, I'll answer them. If not, I'll find somebody that can answer them and get the information from them. Okay, so don't be afraid. And also, I always say this to people. If you think your question is stupid, that means it's a good question. Okay, so that's why it's important. So thanks for being here. I kind of enjoyed this today. It's interacting with you. So let's say a closing prayer. God, thank you for the gift of our personal relationship. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for all the people that have been part of our journey and part of our life. Thank you for all those we have connected with. Teach us that you are constantly being our teacher. Help us to be open to the messengers, to the people you send into our life. Teach us to always realize nothing happens by accident. So as we walk the journey of life today, we walk it with an open mind. We ask you to walk with us, be our guidance and be our strength. And as we move forward, we ask that you will help us to be able to be strong on this journey called life. We ask this in gratitude and love, and we ask this in your name.